Hello, 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 and welcome to the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Zalin. How's it going, man?
Ben, to everyone, I'm not talking to Ben anymore. Everyone, I invested in a camera for Ben because his video camera stinks. It's really bad. And I got him the same one that I have, which I think most people can say it's pretty good. I don't know what happened, but your quality's still terrible. And so we will fix that for the next one. I think. You would think now by owning for the site for all these years that we'd be able to figure this out, but next week your camera quality will be better.
We always find new pieces of technology to basically break and not know how to figure out. So one day maybe we'll just reach the peak, but probably not, because if we keep growing and keep adding more and more things, there's going to be more and more technology for us
Well, that's
to
what we're
not
going to
figure
hire
out.
an editor for, right?
Yeah.
Like when Wyatt gets promoted, I'm gonna be like, hey, you do all that, man, and not me. So, but we did get some ratings and reviews, right? What are those numbers on there?
Yeah, so we are up 1 on Apple, up to 91. We're up 2 on Spotify, up to 164 there. So a nice little few additions to our ratings after a couple of barren weeks. So we will take it. Summer is not the off season. We got plenty of things to talk about, plenty of rankings. So make sure those keep coming.
All right, enough on that. I'll let people go since we already got a few reviews. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the hardest names to rank for our preseason men's and women's D1 cross country rankings. But before that, before we get into all of that, we're going to talk about David Mullarkey to NAU, the Florida State standout. I think I was the one who suggested him as like a potential piece for that. I just want to throw that out
You
there.
did?
May have
Yes, you're
said
right.
that. He feels like the perfect replacement for Aaron Las Harris. They NAU loses Aaron Las Harris, they lose Bosley, they lose Brody Hasty, and they lose Nico Young. This team needed firepower desperately. He gives them that. And I think next to Santiago Prosser, Colin Sahlman, Cale Grotenhuis, Corey Gorgas, I think it's a really solid five. I think Mullarkey fills out this lineup in a fairly substantial way that maybe some people may not realize.
Yeah, I mean he's a big addition, and he's someone that is coming off of a breakout year, but it seems like he could still take another step forward, and I think that's why NAU makes a lot of sense for him, where he can his consistency and his he could reach even another level in terms of his top end fitness. I mean, he's run 13:28, he's run 7:42 in the 3K, but you could see him taking another step forward, training at Flagstaff, training with that team under Mike Smith. It just seems like a good fit for him personally to reach another level. And for NAU, I mean, you mentioned that five, and it's a good five, but we've grown accustomed to great like 7 or 8 guys at NAU. And so that kind of leads me to believe, do you think they're going to be content with that more or less being their
No,
group? Or how
no.
you think they're still going to be I would imagine they're
I
still
think,
going to be very aggressive trying to add
yeah,
depth.
the only problem is I just don't know
Who?
who.
Yeah.
Like after Malarkey, who are you going after? Is it Abdallah? Is it? I mean, who else? Yasin Sado, right?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, he
that
could,
kind of makes
right?
sense.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. But like the options for what they need specifically in terms of beefing up that lineup is pretty significant.
Yeah.
And I like BYU, like Oklahoma State. We know how good they are.
Yes.
I think we both agree that they're the favorites. BYU looks scary good too. Like
Hmm.
James Corrigan has been great. Cree Thompson was excellent last year. Joey Noakes was excellent last year. Casey Klinger will be healthy. Davin Thompson will be healthy. Aiden Troutner's, I think we believe in what his cross country potential can be. There are some dudes on that team, and right now the firepower is just not quite there. So they will have to add another piece. 2 questions: were you surprised by Mullarkey going to NAU? And then 2, um, where like are you willing to say that NAU is a podium team right now?
No, not surprised, and I think they're a podium contend or podium favorite. I think is
Sure,
fair is a fair label.
sure,
Just and that's a bet on the
it is.
program as much as it is anything else. Like that, and I know we've gotten in trouble. Kind of, we've said those kind of things about Colorado about, hey, we're gonna rank them at 15th in our
We did.
preseason rankings because
No, it was higher. It was like
yeah,
10th.
or 10th, yeah, whatever it was, because it's Colorado. Like they'll figure it out. It's Wetmore, and so we've gotten a little in trouble doing things like that. But NAU at least has the semblance of a podium like personnel. They don't have a ton of margin for error, and they need internal improvement. But it's not like they're that far away with the current personnel, and their program has proven that they can develop guys. I wouldn't be stunned if they added someone else here or there. It doesn't seem like there's been as many like top level men that have hit the
No,
portal as there has been over the last year. I mean, on the women's side, there's been, I mean, a ton.
ton.
But
Yeah.
like on the men's side, it really doesn't seem like there's been like that top 20 NCAA cross country finisher that's really hit the market.
I guess you could maybe argue Devin Hart, um, being that guy for Oregon,
Yeah.
but that was obviously during the winter. And I'm trying to think like, man, I guess you're right. Like I'm trying to go back to the 2022 XC season and see. Oh wait, yeah, there we go. And see like, were there any names that went into the portal that year? Yeah,
I
I
mean,
guess you could say like Dylan Jacobs from 2021 went in to go to Tennessee.
Los Harris was obviously a big
Las
pickup.
Harris. Yeah, I would think Mullarkey's similar to Las Harris.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so Millard going from Boston College to Providence, thought it was an interesting move. Learned about that. I think a coach texted me whatever the same day it happened, and then I was able to follow up. What is this more beneficial for Providence, or is this more damaging for Boston College? And for those who may not know, Millard is a 405 1500-meter runner, an 852 3K runner, and a 1518 5K runner. She's actually improved since we last talked about her.
Oh, wild. I think it's more beneficial to Providence in terms of it's going to help like enable them to continue this like streak of dominance in the 1500-meter, like continuing from Flockhart in May, even when they leave potentially, and she can kind of continue that mantle. Whereas like for Boston College, this was gonna, and so maybe I'm talking myself out of this, but like she was going to bring them to a different level than they had ever been at. And so now that she's not going to be there, it's not like they're going to be really, they're still going to be good. Like they're going to be solid, but they're just not going to be reaching that maybe new level that they may have reached with her. Whereas Providence, I think this enables them to stay at the elite level, which I think they were probably going to drop off of in the next year or two.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think we quite know yet how much eligibility Millard has. So I think she could come in as a junior. Like I don't
Okay,
know what
sure.
it is specifically. So the timelines might still just match up for her to kind of be this like, hey, we needed one more major piece and we got one more major piece. Just because now they have Kenzie Doyle, right? Who we've talked
Yep.
about, Kimberly May, Shannon Flockhart. Flockhart had just had an amazing 404 run at the Morton Games to win that. So I think really for the cross country perspective, for the ability for this upcoming spring to potentially dominate the 15, do do we think it's the 15 though? Like, are we sure it's not the 5K?
Yeah, I mean, I think her going to Providence would make me think it's going to be the 1500, but I hear you. I mean, 1518, but I mean, without Maya Ramsden, I think you could have like the Providence could convince themselves that they have like three of the top five best 1500-meter runners in the country, and they're just going to
Yeah.
all run together, a la like Washington, and just score a ton of points in that.
Yeah, they legitimately could have three
Yeah.
of the top five. Like, it's not a crazy scenario either. We don't want to spend all day on this because we have obviously the big things that people want to talk about, XC. But right now, Millard's there, Doyle's there, May's there, Flockhart's there. Where are you ranking the Providence women right now?
Yeah, and I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I still have yet to come up with a good. I think they're like podium. Without really going through the list, I think podium favorites at this point. In my mind, of like I think I would put them at like 4. I think I mean, again, this is a group that's more middle distance oriented, but they're all just so talented across the board that I think they're still going to be very, very good in cross country. And when you have a top 3 like this, you're not going up against like these stalwarts that are at their very best. Like NC State's not going to be at like what we've been used to them being at. Um, New Mexico's up and rising. Florida's going to be down probably. Like I think they have the potential to get that like one of those last 2 podium spots.
I don't think I'm there yet. I think I want to see more depth and like
Yeah.
see if Doyle can actually be the low stick, see how good Millard really is on the grass. Those are the main questions that I have. But I'm not going to dismiss anyone who thinks that they're a podium team now or a podium contender. I think I would probably place them more as like a 8, 9, 10 team before I'm willing to say podium yet.
Yeah, and I'm probably a little over my skis in terms of like just the excitement of this, but like and to that point, like they just don't have much room for error. Like this
Right.
is like brings back memories of the Alabama men's team from a couple of years ago where they had that same kind of front end firepower. Although I do trust Providence depth a little bit more than those teams. I just don't
Yeah.
know if
Well,
their
and
front end
actually,
firepower is as potent as maybe that Alabama group was.
well, what about because if Jane Buckley comes back
Yeah,
and
that's
if
what I'm
Laura
saying.
Mooney's still on top of her game, and if X, Y, Z goes their way, like there is actually some depth there. It's not a ton of depth, but
Yeah.
there is some depth. But it's just we have no idea if Buckley's going to be at 100%. We have no idea, just what really to kind of what we're going to get from Mooney. So I think it's more of like an uncertainty than it is like a lack of depth.
Yes, I think that's fair. There's a lot of moving pieces, and we don't have a lot of certainty on any of them. So yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. But anything else before we move on to cross country stuff?
Let's do it. Cross
All right.
country.
First, like real cross country episode, big real cross country episode. So excited about this. We're going to do our hardest men and women to rank as we're preparing to do our individual rankings. Garrett and I and the rest of the team are going to be kind of talking. Me on the men's side, and then you got other people like Mara and Finn, and who will be helping out on the women's side. Of just starting to really craft these rankings and into their final form. So as we're doing this, we have come across names that are extraordinarily difficult in our mind to land in the right spot. So we're
Real
going to
quick,
go.
just
Yeah,
to add to that,
yes.
just because we're talking about something as the hardest name to rank is not necessarily an indicator that they are ranked or they
Yes.
are in X spot or whatever it may be. Remember, we have the top 50 names, then we have 10 just missed, and then we have 10 honorable mentions. So just remember, hardest names to rank, sometimes that means we have to make hard decisions. So sorry, the Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, no, great caveat to throw in there. And some of the hardest decisions are whether or not they are ranked at all. So I think that's a good point. So I think the way we're going to do this is we're each going to pick 3 individuals at a time, and we're going to kind of bounce back and forth. We'll pick 3 men. Garrett pick 3 men, and then women, and then we'll go back and forth and do that twice. So 6 names on each side total. With that said, why don't you start us out, Garrett? Where do you want to go? 3 men, 3 women that were
Let's
hardest to rank for you.
start. Let's start women. Actually, yeah, let's start women. And do you have anyone in particular that you want to start with?
For me on the women's side, and maybe this is because I'm just not as like in depth with the women. I thought like I like was looking through our like rough draft of rankings. I was like, oh, this all makes kind of like pretty good sense compared to the men's side. For me, I'm starting with Carrie Baloga.
Hmm.
I she's a tough one. Like she had a really good steeplechase season. She has great high school pedigree, but we haven't really seen her on the collegiate cross. Is she like top
Yeah,
20?
we have seen her collegiate cross. Remember, because she was at Colorado.
Right, but I thought she didn't compete that year. Am I
No,
wrong?
she did, and she was actually like,
Oh,
yeah, I think
that's
yeah, that's fair because she's not listed as cross country on NAU, right?
right.
So
Yes, and I knew that. Okay, so yeah, you're right. I just thought she redshirted that year. All right, you're right. Yeah. So, all right, but this I still am a little confounded. You look at this: eighth at Pac-12s, 82nd at nationals. She's clearly gotten better, but how much better has she gotten
yeah,
to the
that's
point
fair.
where it's like, are we considering her like top 25 name? Are we considering a top 40 name? Where in this does she lie? I mean, the going to NAU where they've had a lot of success lately, is that an extra like added bonus in terms of how we should rank her? I'm kind of all over the place with her at the moment.
Do you like where we have her right now?
Not really.
No, you don't.
I
I love
if
it. I think it's a great spot.
I think it's a little, if I'm remembering this correctly and looking at this list, making sure that I'm not. I I don't hate it, I guess. I think it's a little high for my liking, but I don't hate it.
Okay. I think there's going to be a natural growth. I think she proved to us that she can be naturally competitive in the spring.
Yep.
She was already like an effective, like she was 21st at the Virginia Invite and 39th at Nuttycombe, which those results alone are not top 50
Right.
quite there, but they're not too far off. And if you're willing to say that she is better, like noticeably better now than she was back then I think you can certainly make the argument, okay, then yes, she's ranked, but I agree. It's the where is she ranked? And I can tell you, our list is not yet finalized there. And with Mara, Rachel, and Finn all making their own notes, I can tell you that like it's not a unanimous. Like we really like her at this spot. Like it might change. So
Who did you want to give another name, or you want me to give two more?
I'll give one name. Silan Ayyildiz of Oregon.
Had her
Fifteen
written down too.
fifteen. Yeah, 15-15 for 5K. Unreal, like a time for her, right? She's predominantly 1500-meter runner. And she actually had like a couple, like one or two decent cross country results, like none that's going to like massively stand out. But I think she was seventh at SECs last year. So like she can clearly be like a competitive name. And when you run 15-15, I'm under the impression that you should be in the top 50. Like
Yeah.
anyone who runs 15-15, which I think is like a top 15, top 20 mark all time NCAA, you should be in our top 50. But where? Because that was a tough postseason for her this past spring. It did not go well. And I think it's clear that she's more of a mile slash 1500-meter runner than anything else. So I struggle to kind of figure out where on earth we're going to put her.
Which for the women's side isn't as like big of a negative, obviously, as it is on the men's side when you're running 6K compared to 10K.
True.
Um, I actually I really like where we're at with her. I mean, she was 11th at the Southeast Regional last year for South Carolina. Didn't really run much in cross country there, but I think that's proof positive that she at least can like handle her own. Very close to making it to nationals individually there. And she's clearly gotten a lot better from that point, at least aerobically. So I think her as a top 50 name and more in that All American conversation, I think is a very good starting point for her.
All right, Ben. Who's your next name?
I have Maggie Condon, and
Mm,
I think higher on her than the consensus.
I'm with you.
From
I'm on
what
your
I'm
side, by
seeing
the way.
with our rankings. What?
No, I take that back. Rachel. I get my names mixed up. Rachel is on your side, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, 402. She just clearly went up a level during the indoor and outdoor season. She was one of the, if not the breakout star, I think on the women's side. She was fantastic. Has been solid in cross. Granted, not to the level of necessarily a top 50 warranting ranking, but I think she's done enough, and I think she's clearly gotten like way better that I think at this point she should be like ranked and not just like maybe barely ranked in my mind.
So she was 16th at the Virginia Invite last year, 47th at Nuttycombe, and 60th at Nationals. Um, Here's the thing: I also agree that she's improved and she's been better, but she's improved and been better over 800 meters in the mile. Like it really hasn't gone above that. Those are obviously two completely different sports at that point. So I struggle to really try to align those two things. But at the same time, you look at her resume and you're like, yeah, like if everyone graduates from these fields and she moves up to whatever the respective spots is, then in theory she should be ranked. Um, I think this is going to be probably the single most contentious name that we have, and
I will be
I'm gonna,
throwing my full support.
yeah. The
if
problem
we
is
need
I
to,
don't know who to like drop, right?
yeah,
And don't let's not suggest anyone right now, but
yeah.
it's really hard to figure out like who would we drop in favor of that, because regardless of whether we have her in the top 35, 40, 45, 50, you know, yeah, I struggle. I don't know.
Yeah, and to your point, like she was doing it over 1500 meter and 800 meters. I mean, she did run a PR in the 3K. She didn't really run above the 1500 meter very many times at all over the last year. So it's hard to say like, all right, she hasn't like gotten better at those things. We just haven't seen it. Like, and like, I being at Northern Arizona, you got to imagine a lot of that is strength based training that she's like that should translate pretty well from even the 1500 meter to cross country. So I have a lot of confidence that just the natural fitness improvement should translate decently well to cross country.
All right, I'm going to take over for my next name. Ashley Jones of Tennessee. Um, I think everyone is just really excited about Tennessee,
Yeah.
and understandably so. You get six last year at the national meet out of nowhere, basically. Like no one even predicted them at the beginning of the season to even make the national meet, right? Like it was that big of a deal. And Jones was kind of like their face of that program, getting 42nd overall at the national meet. She's run well on the track, not amazing, but well. She's run 15:58, 33:34, so solid, but like nothing crazy. The rest of her marks 12th at pre nationals, 10th at SECs, 7th at South Regional. I, I, I is that a top 50 resume?
I struggle to think that it is.
Because, and then you make the argument, well, you just, graduate everyone else, and then where does she, actually stand there? It's like, sure, but like,
Again,
it's a
I'd rather
hard.
have Condon. Like that's like those are
You'd
the
rather
like
have Colin than Jones?
yeah. Like I just and I get the reasons for and against like for Jones and against Cognan. Like I again, this is cross country. This is 6K. We're not talking about who's the best maybe all around runner. That doesn't matter. It matters who's the best cross country runner. And Jones, I think, has at least shown that she can be that. But I just think Cognan has gone up another level, and it doesn't even matter that the 6K 5K isn't her distance.
Yeah, and now this is making me reevaluate where we have one other woman who I'll talk to you about later. Um, yeah, I feel like you get 42nd at the national meet. You should probably be ranked. Of course, that's not always, I
But
think, the
I feel like
case.
we've had cases like that before, right? Where it's like you kind of have like maybe one like kind of standout performance at
Yeah,
nationals, and then the
yeah.
rest of
Like
your
I even
resume
name on the
plus
men's side.
plus the rest of your year doesn't kind of line up with that, and we don't necessarily say, hey, just because what you got at nationals gets you that spot. So, um, yeah, it's a tough one. I can go with my next name, and that is her former teammate, Emily Covert,
Mm,
um, who I don't know how. Like, you could make a compelling argument for like off the list, on the list, high on the like. There is, there's just. I mean, you have a lot of data points to point at because she's just been in the NCAA for a long time. She had a solid year at Tennessee. Certainly wasn't her best, but it wasn't like a terrible year.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're coming off of in 2023 finishing 50th at NCAA's, and having a solid year outside of that. We've seen like her reach really high highs on the track and the 10K particularly, and so we know she's capable of being top 25 name really if she's firing on all cylinders at the very least. But it's impossible to know like what percent of that level she's at right now. She could be at 80%, and maybe that's just not making the rankings. Maybe she's at 90, and then she's probably within our rankings. I really have no idea what to do with her.
Because what happens is that if she finishes outside of like the top 12 or 13 at the Virginia Invite last fall, you go, okay, probably not, right? Because at least now we have an entire season where she's outside of the top 10 at Pac-12s. She's 50th at the national meet. She's outside of the top 40 at Nuttycombe. Well, she was 5th at the Virginia Invite.
Yeah.
And I know the lack of consistency. Like, I have basically trained you all to believe that consistency is the end-all be-all. And now it's basically biting me in the butt because, like, I believe that she's a top 50 runner, especially with her prior resume.
Yep.
You just don't quite know the version of what you're going to get. But I refuse to believe that she's, like, not a top 50 runner. I don't. She was 50th at the national meet, so which is obviously not how these things work.
I mean, she's clearly like top 50 talent, like, and probably top 30 talent. Like, and it's just whether or not it's just like which version are you getting? And I think that's what I keep coming back to is like which version are we going to get? And that's impossible to know. So we have to kind of figure out like, hey, what's the median outcome? And I think the median outcome still is right on that line of our rankings. It's a very blurry line of whether that's 45th or 55th. Like I think that's a really tough one. And this is one that we could look very, very dumb either way at the end of the year.
Well put. Well put. I'm going to move us off of that. Actually, I'm trying to. It's my final name, right?
Yeah.
Or is it my second?
Your third, I think.
Is it my third? Oh, yes, you're right. My third. I had to think about that. Yes. I'm going to go, and I just had it. I'm going to go Jenna Hutchins.
Had her as well.
Yeah. The first year for her college career was not pretty, to say the least.
Yep.
Downright bad. Let's just be blunt. However, she was pretty much a changed runner, a different runner this entire past year. She was excellent on the track, especially. She was a 2-time All-American between indoor national meet and outdoor national meet, and I'm trying to figure out exactly where she did place along last fall as I pull up those results now. Where is she? There we go. She was last fall 8th at Dellinger. Okay, whatever. 5th at pre-nationals. 6th at the Big 12 championships, which is now a really competitive conference meet, by the way. And then she was 176 at the national meet. I don't think it's fair to judge Hutchins on the 176 because every BYU woman except Aubrey Frenthway and maybe Carly Hansen ran poorly.
Yeah.
And I struggled to be like, well, to say that she's not a top 50 talent would be ridiculous. She is. Now it's a matter of like where in that range and how much do you believe that now her postseason woes are truly behind her? Because I think after this past winter and spring, I feel way more confident about her on the national stage now.
Yeah, and so a lot of thoughts. Like where we have her ranked right now, I kind of like it was very surprising to me because while I think I've been pretty high on her, I think we have her a touch high in terms of just we're really banking on like the potential and the high school accolades a little bit still. I feel like obviously we have some like really promising signs, especially from this last spring. But like if you just gave me that resume of like what we saw in the winter and the spring, you're not ranking her where we're ranking her. Like
wait, whoa, let's have this conversation.
I don't think we are.
She ran 8:55 3K, 15:30.99 5K,
Yeah.
and she ran 32:44 for the 10K. She was sixth place at both national meets. She was a top 5 finisher at pre-nationals and top 6 finisher at the Big 12 championships.
Yeah, no,
You
and
don't
like
think
that's I guess what I meant is like the entire, sorry, I should have said the entire like calendar year. Or like for not a calendar year, the school year, academic year. So like I still think like if you just took that like as a snapshot in time, it's good. I don't know. I do think there's still a little bit of like it's Jenna Hutchins. Like we should probably rank her higher because there's still more to come, we think. And
I don't think
I don't
that's
know if
it.
that's wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong necessarily. I just I don't know if if she's gonna reach that like if she's gonna be top 20 this year based off of all of that.
Hmm. Yeah, see, I don't view that the same way. Like, I do agree there's some kind of like, oh my gosh, the pedigree,
Yeah.
but shouldn't you be allowed to have that argument
No,
if you
and I'm
do
not.
have the
That's what I'm saying. I'm
pedigree?
not saying that it's necessarily wrong. Like I just
I heard you say
I
you hate my family and everything about me. So
it's just a couple years down the line at this point, and I think sometimes we do hold on to those like priors a little long, and I'm guilty of that as anybody. Like,
but she was a double All-American.
yeah, no, I know. Yeah, again, I'm not saying, but I think it's like, can we see that on the grass at a little bit of a higher level? I
Okay.
think. Yeah, I
Okay.
think
I
that's
don't think this is like a suggestion where we have her right now. I don't think this is a suggestion of like, oh, we think she's definitely going to do this. It's like, no, I think it's a fair rank. I don't know. I think it's a fair ranking.
yeah. I mean, again, as we're talking it through it, I am warming up to it. I still think I would have her a couple spots down, but I think it's just you see these on both sides of the rankings where you're like, man, they went from where last year to here in our rankings, and it's like a big leap, but
So
justifiably so.
the runner 2 spots down from her. You think that you would put that runner above her?
Let me see. Um, 1 or 2 spots down.
The second spot down from 2
Oh, the
spots
second
down from
spot down.
Hutchins.
That's I think there's a compelling argument there.
I think that's not even a conversation.
Okay.
I mean, I know that they're that close in the rankings, but
Yeah.
I don't think that's a conversation. So
I think you could go 4 spots down and make an argument for that.
yeah, yeah.
And this is good podcasting because we're talking about people that you guys don't know, but
That's the best part.
and that's the joy of the rankings. Let's wrap up, or let's move, not wrap up. Let's move on to the men's, and I will give you my first name, and that is James Corrigan.
Oh, okay.
It's just like Kenneth Rooks. Like he's way better. He's really good now. Like in the steeplechase. What does that look like exactly? How much better does that mean he's going to be during this cross country season? He's going to be coming off of the Olympics. Winter, like how are we going to see him before Big 12s? Like this is going to be an extremely hard one to set the ranking, and then like how are we going to determine what his ranking is going to be for the first like 8 weeks of the season? I think that's going to be impossible.
It is going to be impossible. Like there is no perfect spot. I think when you're an Olympian, like being an Olympian is just like it's so just cool. Like a different class, yeah. Right? It's so cool. It's different class, and it just gives you a status that like if you say, hey, this Olympian is not ranked in the top whatever, I mean, people would lose their minds. I mean, we ranked Kenneth Rooks at 42 last year, and people were like, what did you not see? You don't believe his steeplechase? That was easily the most accurate ranking that anyone had of him. It wasn't even close, actually. It was actually like right spot on. And let me see where he finished at the national meet. It was like 30. He finished 35th after placing 18th at Big 12s and 31st at Nuttycombe. So yeah. Like
we were right on.
Yeah, steeplechase does not always translate, but Corrigan has run 2 seconds faster, and he's an Olympian. And he was already an All-American.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the key point. Is he was already very successful on the grass. Like maybe not as successful as being an Olympian would indicate, but like he still has proven that he has the ability to do it on the grass, and that's why it's like I agree with the range that he's in. I just don't know. Like you can make a compelling argument for 5 spots higher, 5 spots lower. I think, and that's kind of and then the conundrum of what do you do throughout the season is also just eating away at me.
Yeah, that's not going to be fun. I'm not looking forward to doing that. All right, I'm taking over now. My next name, Sanele Masondo.
Me
The
too.
single most frustrating runner to deal with last year. You could see that he had tons of raw talent, tons. It just never happened. It never showed up in any of the results until the national meet where he decided to place 16th overall, which is probably the single most bizarre out of nowhere result I've ever seen in cross country since we started doing this.
I don't know. We've had some of these. Who
Masondo was
was it? The Weber State Christian Allen.
that's a good okay, fair. But guess what? I still think Sanel Masondo had a worse season than Christian Allen did that year. I'm not kidding. Go back and look. You're right. Christian Allen came out of nowhere. Sanel Masondo was 104th at UVA Invite, 80th at Nuttycombe, 27th at the Big 12 Championships, and then 16th.
His highest finish of the season was at nationals.
Technically it was the Midwest Regional, but
Okay.
we're not counting that.
Yeah. Wild.
So, and the other caveat that makes this challenging is he's been way better on the track.
Yes.
Like way better. Like he clearly has a better understanding of how to race against NCAA competition, and that is why he's frustrating to rank. So.
Well, and to use Allen as an example, like Allen kind of came out of nowhere and then didn't really do much on the track, but then like was consistently a good like high level performer in cross country. Like he did turn like that performance seemed to have turned a corner for him. And I think we're seeing the same thing with Masondo. And he's doing it on the track too, which I think gives you a lot more confidence going into this year.
So the year that I think we're both referencing for, yeah. Oh, wait 1 second. Yeah, the year was 2019 when Allen finished 14th overall. His results leading up to then were 65th at Joe Piani, which was a better meet than it is now. 40th at pre-nationals, 7th at Big Sky, 14th at the national meet.
It's pretty wild.
So yeah, I think Allen rivals Masondo as like
one of the and yeah, just to use those as comparisons, I think we where we have Masondo, I think it rewards what we saw him do at nationals and what we saw him do throughout the cross country season, and I think it's not necessarily guaranteeing any like that he's going to be back to where he was last year, but I think that him as like an All-American. It is something that we can feel a little more comfortable about.
All right. You give me actually, before you give me your next name, are you on the same sheet that I'm on?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I want to highlight a name. Is this hold on a sec. Where is it? Is this your next name?
No, but I have him on my list. I have him on my list.
Okay.
So
all right, go ahead.
He had to be on the list.
Yeah.
I had Peter Maru as my next name.
Okay.
It's like, well, duh. Like this guy is going to be hard to rank, but I feel like we do have to mention it. I mean, comes over, runs with some really good 5K PRs, runs well during just the indoor season, right? Mm-hmm. For Arkansas, we just have precious little to rate him against. He clearly has the talent. I wonder how that's going to like. When we're seeing so many guys running like the 1310s, 1320s nowadays, like how does that those fast times translate to the grass? And I think that's a really confusing thing for me to figure out. And like the person that he's one spot ahead of and one spot behind, I like both of those guys, quite frankly, better. and
Oh, really?
and decent, like especially the one right ahead of him, I like a lot better. And I just, but I don't like you drop like if I drop him down 5, I think that's too much.
Yeah.
I'm just, I guess I'm less confused about where to rank him, but more confused about like what does this look like? Where does he like really end up stacking up at the national meet? Because I could see him being more of a back end All American than maybe where we have him ranked.
Really? He
Yeah,
ran 13-16. Was an
no,
All-American.
it's just based off of experience more than anything. Like,
I
I mean,
guess.
how do you run in your first November NCAA meet like that? That is,
Okay.
it's we've seen this happen before.
You're right.
I'm thinking of like James Segura of Eastern Kentucky, like that, like some of these guys that like it is a tough first go round. I think he's quite clearly top 20 talent, probably even top 10 talent in the NCAA, but I'm very curious to see how that plays out this fall.
Interesting. I think that's like a perfect spot. I thought that was
I
like one
don't.
of the.
Again, and that's why I guess when I as we're talking about, I'm getting back to like I don't disagree with the spot, and I don't even like think that there's a huge range of like where we should rank him. I don't know if that's going to end up being proven quite correct though. I guess by the end of the year.
Wow, because the thing is, like, you think this guy should be higher, and I don't
Yes.
totally disagree, but the, well, yeah, I guess you could make the argument then.
I think, yeah, and I mean, yeah, the person what we're highlighting, I think is should be ranked higher, yeah, than him,
Hmm,
than Peter Maru.
interesting. Do you think he should be ranked higher than this guy?
I do, yeah.
Okay, okay, good to know. All right, I'm gonna steal this next name from you here, and my next name is going to be Colin Sahlman.
Yep.
He was the pedigree of Colin Sahlman is one of those things that like you just can't ignore. High school superstar, truly great, truly elite, and has been good like in cross country. Like he has been really good even. Well, I don't know about really good, but you know, he's had some really solid results and that I think are undeniably uh, point to a strong like aerobic strength, which is his 7:48 3K, his 13:38 5K. Going back to last fall, 33rd at Virginia Invite, didn't run at the national meet. He's not the resume suggests that he's not a top 15 name. But how do you not rank someone who's
Yeah.
run 3:33 high and has good enough long distance credentials on the track? Like it's like I know he's not. It's so frustrating. I don't know. I have no idea where to rank him if we rank him at all. Like I think there's a legitimate argument that he goes anywhere from honorable mention to like top 35. Like I kid you not.
Yeah, and I agree. Like he was on my list for all of those same reasons. Again, I'll come back to he's training in Flagstaff. He's running with a program that is very good at getting the most out of their guys in cross country. He's just too talented. Like we shouldn't overthink it to the point of like he's run these times. He's with this program. He's clearly one of the best runners in the country. Like he's going to be I just think he's going to be an All-American. Now, again, this is coming from the person who was like the lowest on him when he came in to the
You
NCAA
were.
of
You
like,
were.
we have him way too high. Like he's not going to be ready to contribute right away. But I think at this point he's been in the
He
program.
was a just misname, wasn't he?
I think didn't know we had him ranked, I thought, in the
I
top
don't think we.
40.
No, I think he was just missed. No, I don't think that's true.
Okay, yeah, when you talk,
I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up
yeah,
right
you
now.
pull it up. But yeah, I think at this point he's just like too good and has proven too much that he shouldn't be. And in my mind, I think a top 40 spot is very very accurate, but he could end up almost anywhere.
You might be right.
I
You
think
might be.
top
You might be.
40 at least, if I
Are you
remember.
saying when he first came into the NCAA or last
Yes,
year?
first came out.
You're right. You were very right on that. I was thinking of last year. I forgot that we did those 22 rankings, which in retrospect are hilarious. You kind of go back and look at them now. I'm like, oh no.
What was he at?
She was at 29.
29? Yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
I could have sworn top 30 too.
yeah, that's
Oh
so
man.
funny. That was a tough one. Yeah, actually, some of these are actually not terrible rankings. Yeah, so that's tough. So, anyways, sorry. Go ahead. Give me your next name.
I have next up. Let me pull up my list again. Carter Sahlman of Notre Dame. He's had a fascinating career. It's almost gone in like reverse, and I think I've made that analogy before of
Yeah.
like if you started at his Tiefers at the top and then you went down, you would think you were going in chronological order at certain points because he just started out so well. He was, I mean, and just improve, like just hit the ground running, especially in that 2022 season where he was 18th at NCAA's. And since then, he's shown flashes. I mean, he was 107, but was 170th last year. Ran 757 this past indoor season, but just hasn't looked like that guy who finished in the top 20 2 years ago. The ability to run on the grass and the times in general are still there. I just I very well think he could be a top 50 name at the end of the year. I just don't know if we would be using his past credentials far too much if we put him at that spot at this moment. And he's just a very interesting name for me to watch throughout the entire year.
But you agree that he's placed correctly.
I do. Yeah, I do. I think he has one of the most volatile names and probably one of the most important names in terms of his value to his team. Like if he's good and really good, this Notre Dame team looks very, very different.
Yeah, I think there's a shot that he's not placed there, um, just because of all of these guys that we then have to find spots for.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a like for anyone wondering, there were the actual like ranking of the men's top 50 was like we've had harder years.
Yeah.
I'd say we've had more difficult years. This was not terribly hard, but there are now I think you could argue 75 some names that had legitimate arguments to all be ranked in some capacity, some more than others, or at the very least be in a certain tier or certain section, some more than others. And there's some people are going to be upset, and I feel really bad because we only do top 10 JM, top 10 honorable mentions. It's just a crowded list.
Yep, I agree. All right. Do you have one more before we switch back to women?
To women?
Or do you want to do we? I thought are we doing another group of women? Or are we sticking with this?
Well, I thought we were just done with this, but we'll do after this. We'll do one more set of women. We'll do one name, and they'll do one name.
Yeah.
All right. For the men, I will say Devin Hart, Oregon. Guy was unbelievable for Texas last fall. Just flat out borderline elite, actually, if not elite. Goes to Oregon after some transfer moves back and forth. Between like, well, he could land here and he might land here, and he ends up at Oregon. His outdoor track season's like 4 races. 2 are solid, 2 are not so solid. And I have no idea what kind of fitness he's in. I think this is like a fair middle ground, but I also don't know, and I don't feel confident in that either.
Yeah, he was inconsistent even at his best at times, and so to put him and I shouldn't say that. I mean, he was better his last year, but Yeah, I mean, he is a potential to be a top 20 guy, but we've seen him have performances, like you said, that would indicate he shouldn't be on our list. Like, and that is a hard one to square. I think ultimately we have him in a solid spot. Just again, that median outcome. I think he still should be seen as an All-American favorite. But man, if he's not someone you enter the year and be like, all right, I can pencil, like I put him in pen that like, all right, he's going to score like less than 45 points for us this year, like at the national meet. And you don't have that same level of confidence that you have maybe about some guys, even like a couple spots behind him, that you feel just more confident that they're at least going to be right in that range at NCAA's.
Quick correction. I said 4 races. He had 5 meets, 6 races, one of which was a DNF, so 5 results. But I have a question for you. If Hart does not race in the spring, are we as nervous about his current ranking?
Probably not, which I don't like to say that because
Yeah.
you shouldn't be docked for racing versus not racing. But yeah, that probably plays a little bit of a role in my mind and my hesitancy.
Because if you someone just told me, hey, don't worry, he's coming back in the
Yeah.
fall, I'd be like, great, higher. But the spring was just not great. And so I think it almost hurts him. It does hurt him.
Yeah.
And yet I think he could also have be the 6th best name in the country. That's what I'm absolutely terrified about. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So do we want to do one more woman's name and one more men's name each? And for
yep.
me, on the women's side, I have Sophie O'Sullivan.
Okay.
Just I feel like we just haven't gotten the best out of her in the NCAA a lot of times. Like we've seen these great international performances, specifically in the middle distances, and we've seen the flashes. Like obviously, she's been a huge part of the DMR for Washington. She's been great at certain times on the track. I think the talent is there to be like top 30, top 25 name if all things go well. But I just don't know how you can trust that like she's going to get through a full season and be primed and ready to go at the NCAA meet, and have that consistency throughout. I like again, she's against someone like if she's as good as we think she can be, things change significantly for her Washington team. Like I mean, you pair her with Matug and you have like you could have this very, very potent like front duo. I just don't know if we can really and so I think where we have her in the ranking kind of represents that. But I just don't love how I just have no confidence in what we're going to get out of her. And I guess that's why she's on my hard to rank list.
I think I've warmed up to O'Sullivan maybe a little bit more than you have, but I think it's all fair. I think it's, a lot of her best performances have come overseas during the summer, which is fine. I know this past year she was injured and actually rallied back enough to, I think she got All American. No, she was not. She was good. She did make the finals at national meet over 1500 meters. But I thought she was solid in the fall. I thought she was 15th at UVA Invite, 65th at Nuttycombe. She was 6th at the Pac-12s, and she was 56th at the NCAA XC Championships. So I think that 6th place in the Pac-12s helps. I think Virginia Invite helps. I think it's enough. Do you? How about this?
Before you ask me that, I think I might actually be higher on her in terms of I think she has the potential of being really, really, really good, a lot better than those results show, from last year, which are solid, like you said, like you're saying. I guess that's where it's harder for me to rank her is I really truly believe she could be a top 20, 25 name. I just don't have a lot of confidence that she's going to hit that highest potential for her in the cross country season.
I think I feel more confident that she will be better than last fall. I don't think her ceiling is as high as maybe you suggest.
And I think,
Um,
yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Yeah.
so, which makes me think that this is a fair ranking, even though some of the writers did not like the ranking.
Yeah. Well, I
I was
mean,
like,
it's a good ranking when people disagree on either side. And I think that's pretty much what you should be going for.
yeah. So yeah. That all right. Never mind. I'm gonna let that go. I think it's a fine. Actually, I think it's a good ranking. So, okay. I'm gonna move off of that. And where was the other name? Oh yes, Carmen Alder. This one was a tricky one. So Carmen Alder won pre-nationals last year, pretty much out of nowhere. She was 7th at Big 12's, great result. She was then 246th at the national meet. There are 247 women who finished that race. She has a great indoor track season, 433 mile, 1551 5K, which is pretty solid. How she doesn't race in the spring, by the way, but how do you rank that? How do you rank that?
You kind of throw a pin at the wall. Like I truly don't know. Yeah, there's just not enough recent data points. Like if we were making this in a model, the model would just like have like just an error like spitting out
shoulder shrug.
Yeah, like I mean I think where like we have her is okay.
But you want to see a change.
Probably I would say a
somewhere
little
around.
lower. Yeah.
You want to see it around here, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I feel like I'm gonna be overridden on that regardless. So yeah, I think it's so frustrating because the national meet was not bad. It was atrocious. Ooh, excuse me. It was atrocious. And
we just haven't seen much since. Like
yeah, but it's also such like so clearly an outlier. Like she won pre-nats.
Yeah.
Like, and I know the meet is not nearly
it's
as
not
good
what
as
it used to be. Yeah.
It's not what it used to be. But guess what? It's still one of the major 4 regular season meets. It'd be Nuttycombe, Pre-Nats, Piani, and whatever the Virginia Invite, I guess, was last year.
Yeah.
I'd say it's probably out there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean that's fair. I don't have strong opinions on her, mostly because I just don't think you can. Like I don't think there's enough to tell like to really push you that hard one way or the other. You can fall back on one result really on either side in terms of what you're trying to argue, right? You can if you think the national result is more representative, you're going to be a little lower. If you think the pre-nat result is more representative, you're going to be a little higher. Like it really depends on which of those two you feel a little bit more confident in. All right, let's wrap up. I got one more name on the men's side, and you do too. My last name, Yasin Sado. 8:17, just ran that in the steeplechase. He's on the portal. We don't know where he's going to be running next year, which I think is kind of is maybe a little relevant. 73rd at NCAA's this past fall. 13th at ACC's, was 109th though at Virginia Invite. Clearly got better as the season went on last cross country season, and is in the best shape of his life right now. Ran 3:55 in the mile this indoor season. I think he should be in it. I think he should be in our ranking. I think it's a question of how high. But I think he's shown enough that you have this baseline of like competency that he's proven in cross country, I think. And now it's like, how high can he elevate now that he's reached a different level of fitness?
Yeah. I think that's another one that will be adjusted from where they're at now. I feel like, and I think it makes sense. Like, I think it's probably impossible to leave them out there. I think I agree with you. Like how high. I'm a little more cautious because we just went on a rant about how steeplechase performances don't always translate.
Yeah.
And like, let's be honest, his cross country season was not really that great.
It was
until
fine.
the national meet.
Yeah.
I mean, he was okay, I guess, but like he wasn't really sniffing top 50 at all. Because yes, he was 73rd at the national meet, but he was 13th at ACCs, 39th at pre-nationals, and 109th at the Virginia
Yeah,
Impact.
that 109th at Virginia is
Exactly.
that's the one that weighs down the season significantly. But when you if you remove that, you can see a progression to that
Yeah.
73rd.
Yeah, I mean, he peaked well. He peaked very, very well, and I'm not going to take that away from him. And that will probably be something that rewards him. And the other thing that's nice is that he had a great indoor track season too, where he
Yep.
ran 13:31, he ran 3:55, he ran 7:56. So that helps his case for sure.
Absolutely. All right, your last name, sir.
All right, I'm going to cheat a little bit. It's any Kenyan who has not yet run cross country in the NCAA, and so
I have one of those on my list as well.
Yes, that means it includes Peter Maru, right, who we've already spoken about, Dismas Career.
Mhm.
It includes Dennis Cabruto, and it includes Vincent Chirchir of New Mexico. Cabruto and Career were of Alabama, and Chirchir is of New Mexico. Peter Maru, of course, of Arkansas. I have no idea. I mean, we know that they're supremely raw talents. We know what the times say. We have also been shown that you either the fitness is either so dominant to the point where it doesn't matter
Yeah.
your inexperience, or there's a lot of ambitious new guys who just clearly don't know how to race in the NCAA, and you just don't know, and that makes ranking them impossible.
Yeah, I mean it's the Peter Maru conversation all over again. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean at least Maru we saw a little bit of
Yeah.
and so you can I think that's why I feel a little bit like I can gauge him a little bit more, but like the rest of these guys, I mean, good luck. I mean, yeah, I just was career on my back end of my list as well because I mean the times are there.
Yep.
But like we said, a lot of guys are running fast times now in the NCAA.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Like, how much better do you have to be to like hit the ground running? I guess is the question that I feel like we keep asking, because I mean, Tim Samuel like was like his times were way better, and like that, like obviously he was super competitive right out of the gates. But like a lot of these guys don't have. None of these guys have his credentials, and probably no one will. Like, and so like how close to him can they get right away? I think is impossible to gauge.
Yeah, and Dennis Kipnigetich and Brian Masau were like perfect examples last year where we didn't even know that they were in the NCAA. And even when they ran like super well at the Cowboy Jamboree, we're like, oh, I don't know. So, but that's all I got, Ben. Those are my names.
All right, let's wrap it there. We have plenty more discussion to be had on both of these lists before the final rankings come out. But yeah, start to keep an eye out, obviously, for those in the coming weeks. We're excited to be working on those and really starting to truly think about what this upcoming fall is going to look like.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's the best time of the year. Again, these rankings are not totally set in stone yet. They're still a little bit dynamic. We're going to be refining. I'm getting some eligibility confirmation emails. If you're a coach and we emailed you, please email us back. That would be great. We have a good return rate, but definitely not 100%. And there are some really, really key programs where it'd be really cool if we could get some return responses on that. So thank you and ahead of time. But other than that, that's all I've got.
All right. Well, until next week, when hopefully my camera works, I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you.